Google Merchant Center suspended for misrepresentation. I know I got a heart attack the first time it happened to me, but after 7 years of running Google Ads, we have systemized an approach that helps us not only fix misrepresentation, but basically any suspension reason out there fast. And in this video, I want to go over a specific checklist and a general overall approach along with a live example of how it's done. But before I actually go in depth into this checklist, give you an overview of how to approach this, I want to take a step back and help you understand why misrepresentation is such a different suspension than anything you might face. Because misrepresentation is not essentially talking about a specific product you might sell or a specific landing page even. It's talking about the entire business and the entire funnel as a whole. Because I see brand owners fix a thing or two. Maybe they go in issues which they believe might be an issue on, let's say, the help center or the contact us page or the policy page, and they change a word here or there, and then they get frustrated when Google never seems to unsuspend their account. What Google is actually looking for is how does your business flow from top to bottom. I'm not talking about scrolling from top to bottom. I'm talking about things like what is the information provided in the back end in the Google Merchant Center itself, the settings section, what is the business information in the back end of your Shopify store or your WooCommerce store. How does the overall schema play out when it comes to the SEO side of things and the business information on Google My Business, so on and so forth. All of these things are connected in a way where the Google Ads algorithm, when it's crawling through your website, it's trying to understand any sorts of discrepancies there may be from the top to the bottom. Because essentially, misrepresentation is a gap between one page to the next, which is not matching. And that's why so many accounts struggle to get their accounts back when it goes through misrepresentation, simply because they're not sure exactly, first of all, where the issue is stemming from. Unfortunately, Google is not so clear in giving you an idea of exactly which page is causing that issue, what verbiage is causing that issue, so on and so forth. And second issue, which most brand owners do, is they start appealing immediately. Maybe they'll fix something on the help center, maybe they'll add in a specific piece of contact information on the contact us page, and then they appeal immediately. But also once they get the appeal back and it's rejected, instead of sitting down and thoroughly going over literally every single page, literally looking at all of the text that's in white on the landing page that may be hard to see to decipher what the issues is, they start appealing repeatedly. And keep in mind, appealing repeatedly, appealing without changing anything, is how an account goes from suspended to permanently banned. So in a situation like this, the best kind of approach is to actually take a step back, stop with the reappeals after the first try, because there is a limitation as to how many times you can appeal before the account is permanently suspended and you can no longer appeal for that account. And once you take the step back, you want to kind of look at the overall business from the landing page to the back end in terms of three separate buckets. Number one, can Google and Google's algorithm actually find you and understand what your brand is about? This is in related to the contact page, the footer menu, so on and so forth. Number two bucket is, can Google's algorithm and Google in general read your website and read your business as a whole? This refers to the policy pages, any hidden contact you may have directly on a landing page, which is not properly submitted to the backend. And the final bucket, which Google uses to understand whether the misrepresentation should be successfully appealed or not, is can Google's algorithm actually trust you? And this is where it's all about the storefronts, the claims you may have, the offers you may have submitted in the backend, so on and so forth. Because here's the thing, on a normal interaction, Google will not tell you exactly why you're suspended. And the reality is, you as the brand owner cannot see what the reviewer, in this situation, the algorithm itself, is looking at when it decides to suspend your account. So the goal of this checklist here is to show you exactly how the reviewer and the algorithm itself, if it's not a manual review, if it's an algorithmic review, is looking at to understand whether you qualify for that appeal or completely have to leave the platform forever. But let's go start off with the first bucket. These are all of the different sections which are related to each of the individual buckets. But in terms of the can they find you section, it's all about the contact page plus the footer menu itself, the first two sections right here. And this is a live example because this is my own e-commerce brand, which I started drop shipping back in 2017. Of course, now we work with tens of e-commerce brands, which, by the way, if you run a brand making over $50,000 a month in revenue, you're dealing with misrepresentation issues, or you just want to scale profitably with Google Ads to the next level and your brand already does $50K a month or more in revenue, scan the QR code on the screen or click link, the first link in the description below to directly schedule a call with me, and let's see how we can potentially work together to make that happen. But this is an account which was recently suspended because I was not paying attention to it, because we made some changes on the landing page side of things, which actually led to this suspension. We were able to get it back fairly quickly and fairly easily. As you can see, all of the products are now approved, with just one that's disapproved and 3 under review. But essentially, the approach here starts with the first bucket, which is the contact us page and the footer menu itself. I'm not going to go too in depth into all of the individuals of the business details, the links and legibility, etc., because this checklist is available in the description below as well. But what I do want to go over is the general approach you should be taking within this first bucket. And the thing you want to keep in mind for this first bucket is Google is trying to understand not only what your business is about in terms of the legal business name, the address, phone number, so on and so forth, but also how reliable and consistent is this information throughout the entire landing pages, throughout the entire contact page. I have a whole section on the contact us page because that is where majority of the misrepresentation issues starts arising. And if we look right here and go over to our contact us page, first and foremost for my website itself, we have the actual email, which you can't see for obvious reasons, for security reasons. But the second contact form is the actual phone number. And then finally, we have the actual business mailing address along with the actual contact us form itself. So what essentially Google is looking for is, do you have a variety of different contact us sections for the first bucket? This is super important because this determines how Google even views your brand, whether it views it as trustworthy or whether it views it as spammy and scammy website. And of course, this ties into the next portion, which is making sure that this information you have provided, whether it be the emails, the phone numbers, whatever it may be, it's the same and flowing throughout the back end as well. I see so many brands have one phone number listed here, but then on the back end, they have their own personal number or anything like that. And that's where the discrepancy starts. It needs to match literally everything from the front end to the back end as well. In addition, the address is one of the most important things because the address verifies if you're a real business and where it's actually located. And what most brands don't get right is they have one address that is the mailing address here. Then they might have a business address that's maybe Wyoming because they registered their business in Wyoming or anything like that in the back end. This needs to be matching because this is what Google is trying to understand, whether the brand is compatible and relevant throughout all of these sections. And then of course, this leads into things like the backend schema, the who is, even your actual site hosting backend information. All of those things is what Google is crawling through within the first bucket. And the goal here is not to just abide by Google's basic approach and Google's basic necessities, it's rather to go above and beyond. That's exactly why we have 3 ways to contact us instead of one which Google recommends. And this is prevalence throughout not only our contact us page, but also the footer menu right here. As you can see, we have the customer service section with the emails, the SMS mailing address, all the same throughout every single section of the business itself. And of course, there's further things you can do within the footer menu as well, such as the support hours you may have, the company registration number, the VAT number if you're based in Europe, the text and the font size of the text itself. All of these things are all about legibility, consistency, and relevancy to your entire business. Because once you have the first bucket in place, which allows the Google Ads algorithm to know that, hey, these customers can actually find this brand, find different ways to contact this brand, reach out to it, and even ship the address back because the mailing address right smack on 2 different sections of the website. That's when you can finally move on to the second section in the second bucket, which essentially is, can the algorithm actually read you? This is where we get into the policy pages, the hidden and unreadable content side of things. And this is basically the easier side of the equation, where essentially it's all about having the right types of policy pages and making sure the policy pages that you actually have, for instance, if we go over here to refund policy, for example, that this is not copied and pasted from another business you might be running or from another e-commerce brand, because Google is cracking down on the copy and paste e-commerce brands, dropshipping websites, which are not properly following directions, which basically are not taking these policy pages seriously. And this also means auto-generated policy pages are a big red flag in Google's eyes and in the Google Merchant Center's eyes. So what that essentially means for you in a strategic way is literally pressing Control A or Command A and going through all of your text here word by word to understand, hey, is this text referring to my website and my domain, or is it referring to another website because I copied and pasted this, or because I took it from a competitor's website? Because even small discrepancies like this, which by the way, a lot of the times the text can be in white and your landing page background is also in white, it becomes very difficult to point out those things. But understanding what's hidden behind the scenes that you can't really see, because again, Google's algorithm is crawling through everything word by word, page by page to understand what your business is about, and further going into all of the policy pages, because this is the foundational pillar of your business. This is what Google is literally trying to understand, whether you run a real business or if this is some scammy drop shipping website. But in addition to that, moving now to the second segment of the second bucket, which is the returns and refunds. What most brands don't realize, and this is something that happens mistakenly, is they have different shipping times and different processing times in the Google Merchant Center directly, even in the business information, and it's completely different in the refund section or in the shipping policy section of their website. This is a big red flag because again, Google likes to compare all of the information you have, whether it be on the shipping info information or whether it be in the privacy policy page, directly to the back end. So for instance, if it says 2 to 15 business days here, it better say 2 to 15 business days in the back end, because if it doesn't, that's what Google classifies as misrepresentation, and that's going to basically start causing a lot of problems. So if you can see here, we have different shipping options available here for different countries, and these are all general frameworks and general time periods. Of course, it's not exact as what's mentioned right over here, but you want to be in the general time frame, leaving out plus minus 3 days for any sorts of discrepancies. The more you take discrepancies into account, the more the algorithm is likely to trust your brand, because it's all about consistency in the second bucket for the Google Merchant Center and the Google Ads algorithm. And of course, this kind of progresses further into things such as the nitty-gritty details of the restocking fees, who pays the return shipping, the privacy policy using the current domain and legal entity throughout, the terms of service, no empty spaces, no placeholders, no coming soon, all of these things that basically tell the Google Ads algorithm that you're not an established brand or you're not actively selling products right now is a big red flag within the second bucket. But let's now assume that you have gone through the first bucket. You have a strong foundation in terms of how people can reach out to you. You have consistency from the contact us page to the header to the footer, and your policy pages and all of the content is full on readable. There's no hidden pieces of content. There's no oversight of any sort in terms of another domain in use or another brand name in use. Then we can move on to the third bucket, which is all about transparency and trustworthiness of the business. This is where we go into trust, transparency in the storefront itself, and also testing everything else and then appealing. So essentially, things such as the site's health and the claims, offers, and product data. Super important to not have things like fake countdown timers, fake stock counters, inflated compare ad prices, email gates, pop-ups. These are not basically oversights, because most brands, and you might have been doing this yourself, like to install this as a way to improve conversion rates. But issue is Google Ads and the Google Ads algorithm does not care about your conversion rate tactics. All it cares about is, hey, is this countdown timer real or is it fake? Did this brand actually run this sale last week and last month? Is it the same thing, or are these new numbers? Are the stock numbers that are visible in the back end consistent throughout the front end as well? Google is trying to understand all these things, because the last thing it wants is a brand that's taking advantage of the users that shop on the Google Ads algorithm. So all of those CRO tactics, you want to kind of bury on the side until you get your Google Merchant Center full on approved, because that might be the reason why your brand is not actually getting approved, and Google does not trust your brand in any way, shape, or form. But before you get to the sixth section, what you want to do is you want to finish these checks with the product feed, because what most brands don't realize is they have certain information on the shipping info page, they have certain information on the Google Merchant Center, but when they go on the actual product page and they read the description, they realize that these numbers and these shipping periods and handling times and return times are completely different in their product descriptions versus what's mentioned in the back end. That's a big red flag, because again, Google wants consistency from what you say on the front end, even in terms of the pricing you have, the promos you have running, to the back end. What's appearing on the landing page? Is your price on the front end $639, but then when you go on the back end, it's maybe $709 or $999, because that counts as discrepancy, and that's going to lead to misrepresentation. In addition, you have to thoroughly go through your description to understand what are the shipping times, handling times, and make sure that is matching and you don't have any sorts of fake Trustpilot badges, fake Google review badges, so on and so forth, because that is a big red flag for the Google Ads algorithm right now. But from the product feed, to the landing page, the checkout price consistency, which ties straight back to the way your feed is positioned on the front end, which this brand clearly has not done it the right way, because it's at 639 here. When we go on their landing page, it's 709. This will eventually lead to misrepresentation. But with that out of the way, then you can finally move on to the final last stage, which is confirming several things of your business, such as the listed phone number for your website and the support number. It's working properly, not only within the United States or whatever country you're targeting, but also internationally. Emailing the support address on your website, all of these things, making sure that you actually screenshot every part of this funnel for best results to make sure it's properly firing and properly implemented as it should be. Because if you are to appeal again and this time it does get rejected, you can request a manual appeal from a real Google rep, a higher rep. That's the benefit of working with a Google Ads agency like ours, because we have access to some of the highest reps possible in the industry. And these are not those reps that give you a phone call saying to increase budget so that you can make $1 million more. But essentially, making sure all of these things are checked off is essentially what you want to do. And of course, there's a little list here of where these requirements are coming from, where we derive these things from, such as the misrepresentation policy, the editorial and professional requirements, so on and so forth, in case you want to figure out how we even came up with this checklist. But when you are appealing, there's a few things I want you to be aware of. Number one, appeals are limited and reinstatements are not guaranteed. There's a very good chance you might go through every single one of these things and you might still get disapproved. In situations like those, you want to do a bit of a deeper analysis, or maybe even get more professional help to understand if there's any discrepancies in the back end versus the front end, or maybe if you got suspended previously for another business and now Google is kind of connecting that to this business as well. Those are the things you have to go a bit deeper into. But to prevent that from happening, it's very important for you to go through step number 6 here and make sure you're testing literally everything from a personal account, a personal phone number, because that is exactly what Google is doing when you do a manual review. It's somebody manually checking these things to ensure these are implemented the right way. But at the end of this 3-bucket strategy, you should have been able to successfully appeal your suspended accounts due to misrepresentation. And there's a very good chance, if you follow this step by step, that your account should have been reinstated at this point. But again, if you run a brand making $50K a month or more in revenue, you would rather get some help scaling your brand profitably and consistently with Google Ads to the next level, scan the QR code on the screen or click the first link in the description below to directly schedule a call with me, and let's see how we can potentially work together to make it happen.